This story's from the time I was 18 years old. It was actually my 18th birthday. I spent the evening beforehand drinking with friends and went to bed about 3 a.m, slightly worse for wear. I woke up to be having one of my visions. Of all the days to have one on my birthday. But this wasn't a normal vision. This was very, very intense. I could see a girl wrapped in a crisscross fencing. She was bound by it, wrapped up tight, and she was being abused by two men. It was horrible to see, very distressing for me. I imagined how distressed the young girl must have been. I could see the men cutting her skin while she was wrapped up tight in the wire fencing. She was screaming to be let go, but the sadistic men just carried on. Like I said a moment ago, this was on the morning of my 18th birthday. I was wondering why I was seeing this on this day of all days. Was it some kind of negative spirit having a laugh, or was this actually happening? I could hear the two men talking in Polish, but I could also tell that the girl being abused could speak English. They had her in an old wooden shed that looked to be in the middle of some marshlands or woodlands, miles away from anywhere or anyone. She was pleading for her life, and each time she pleaded, she just received another hit or another stab. I felt so sorry for the young woman. I guess she was about 20 years old, and I could tell the two men were in their late 30s. What bastards they were. Psychopaths, totally. As I was witnessing this, I was thinking to myself, I wish I could be there just to help her, just to do something. And then something even stranger happened. The woman looked at me. She knew I was there almost in spirit with her. When I'd realised she looked at me, I had to almost check myself. I looked down at my body. I could see it. It's as if I was stood there in that shed, in that marshlands, in the middle of nowhere for just a moment. It's as if I was a ghost. As soon as I had looked up again to the woman, she started shouting in English, "Tell my sister I love her," to which the two men said something in Polish and then laughed, followed by a backhanded slap to her face. Bastards. She shouted it again, "Tell my sister I love her," in English. I could understand she was shouting this as well while she was looking at me. They then both started jabbing their knives into her repeatedly, followed by a few more punches. The stabs were getting worse. At first they were stabbing her arms, then they started stabbing her body, her chest, her stomach. Blood was pouring from all over her. That poor woman's body then went limp. Being wrapped up in the fencing kept her body upright, but I could tell she was now dead. Oh my God, had I just witnessed this murder as it happened in real time? If so, I'd never seen anything like this before. I regularly see people dying in more natural circumstances, like car crashes, but being murdered, whoa, that was a new one for me. I then started to come round from the vision, in the now time, and I was sweating profusely. I was shocked by what I'd seen. Who was her sister? How could I tell her? Could I meet her? I listened to the news for a few days after that to see if I could hear a story about a murder or anything in Poland, but I heard nothing. I also checked the newspaper, but nothing appeared. I was genuinely distressed from this vision for a couple of weeks. It was in the forefront of my mind. I was constantly thinking, who is her sister? How can I tell her? Even my close friends could tell I was affected by this, and I told a few people what I saw in my vision. One even helped me look through the newspapers, and she said, "We'll just have to keep an eye out." Just like me, she never heard or saw anything about this murder in the news or the newspapers. Many years had passed, and quite regularly I'd thought about this vision, what it was all about, why on my birthday. 13 years later, I was in a town near Liverpool, and I was going to meet a friend. I hadn't seen this friend for quite a while. I arrived a little early, and the pub was virtually empty, except for two men and a woman who were all together. I quickly realised they were Polish. I ordered a drink and sat down, not too far away from them, and they were having a laugh with each other. As I waited for my friend to arrive, the female of the trio started talking to me. Then I got a text from a friend saying he couldn't make it, work had called him in, so he wasn't able to do anything about it and apologised. I carried on drinking with the Polish trio. The woman was in her early 30s, and one of the guys was her younger brother, and the other was a relation of theirs. I think he was a cousin. After about an hour, we were all getting ready to leave, and I said to the girl if she'd like to go for another drink sometime, as we had a decent giggle, and she accepted. We met up about a week later, had a few drinks together and another giggle, after which I walked her home. Her house was only around the corner from the pub. She asked me in to meet her family, some of which I'd already met in the pub the previous week. So I met them, and they were all very nice, very welcoming, and they poured me a drink and interacted nicely, so it was all good. After a while, I had to leave. I had an early start the next day. We had decided to meet the following week. There was nothing in it, it was just having a laugh. They were good company. Now this time when we'd arranged to meet up, we said we'd meet at the house. And I went there, and her brother answered the door, and I asked how he was, but the face on him just wasn't right. He looked very sad, very concerned. He invited me in. As I went through the hallway, it went into the lounge, and I went in, but no one was there. Then I looked towards the kitchen, where my friend walked out from, with very teary eyes, and she came and gave me a hug. I asked, "What's going on?" She started to explain. It was the anniversary of the death of her sister, followed by, "She was murdered," to which my eyes filled up. I clearly had tears coming down my face. I instantly knew who her sister was. She said to me, "Why are you crying? You didn't know her." She was the girl I saw 13 years ago in my vision being murdered. So I started telling her. It was 13 years ago, wasn't it? Yeah. She said yes. Do you know? There was no easy way to tell her this, but she didn't know much about my abilities. So I started saying, I'm psychic. I get these visions and these readings. I get pictures too. I can see things physically and also can do this distant viewing. I told her I knew what day it was as well. And she said, "What day was it then?" And I told her the date. She said to me, "How did you remember the date?" And I said, "Because it was my 18th birthday." She then said, "You saw it?" I said, "Yes, all of it." She started to say, "What, you saw all of it?" I said, "Yes." And she said, "But how?" Her eyes really teary at this stage. She couldn't quite get her head around what I was saying. I told her the date and the time and where I was that day, and basically all of what I saw. She was in floods of tears, and so was the rest of the family. I told her that her sister had given me a message for her, but also that I thought her sister could see me there, which is why I think she gave me this message before she was murdered. One of the family members could speak very good English. They were translating to all the others. They were all obviously stood there in shock at this English person that said they saw the murder of their sister and aunt. That family member then asked, "What was the message?" I said to them. She said, "Tell my sister I love her." This was the last thing she said. Then she was murdered. Everyone there that evening was in floods of tears, including myself. They were asking quite a lot of questions at me, to which I answered them all. Because I answered them correctly and honestly, I think they understood me more and they believed what I said. I then explained, for 13 years I wondered why I saw this murder, how I saw this murder. More importantly, how could I reach the sister of this young woman to pass on the message? Was it fate I was meant to meet these people? I was there expecting to meet a friend who I hadn't seen for a while, who then got called for work. When he didn't arrive, I then started talking to these guys. It must have been fate that we were going to meet. The woman then asked me, "What do you do now?" And her brother stood up to say, "What does he do now? The riddle is solved. He goes on his way," which I was quite happy to do, having delivered the message. I shook everybody's hand, and they all thanked me for what I had said. One of them even said, "I'm sorry that you had to see it." That meant a lot to me. I had no choice. This is what I do. This is the life of the true psychic. It's what we're meant to do as psychics. I walked to the front door with the woman and said, "All of what I have said is the truth. Maybe it's a message via some kind of God or higher power, but it's a message. Your sister loved you and wanted you to know. I'm just the messenger." We had a final big hug. We knew we wouldn't see each other after this. I turned around, got in my car and drove away, with a lot of relief, but with a lot of grief as well, knowing that I did my job. I could move on.